So I think what we've heard from China is a lot of fighting talk so far. At every round of Donald Trump's tariffs, China has been basically keeping up with the tariffs that Trump has been levying 34%, 34%, 50%, 50%, and so on. But China only has so much room to tariff American imports because, frankly, it just doesn't import from America as much as America imports from China. And that's part of Trump's problem here, right? And so after the tariffs, China has a few other things that it could do in its toolkit. And we've already seen a couple of them, such as export controls on the rare earth that is needed for especially tech supply chains when it comes to things like batteries or drones or electric cars, where China has a lot of control of that rare earths market. It could basically put export controls on those things. It could also target American companies more explicitly, and we've seen already over a dozen or so American companies being blacklisted in China, which means that they can't operate in China, they can't invest there, Chinese companies can't work with them, and so on. And so there are these kind of other non-tariff toolkit things that China could do. And in the meantime, the rest of the world will basically see a lot of Chinese goods that would have gone to America go to them. And so, in the meantime, there could be a lot of Chinese dumping of cheaper goods, which good for the consumer in these other non-American countries. But of course, policymakers are a little concerned about. It's really interesting that today the China Film Administration has come out to say that actually it will allow fewer Hollywood films to have the appropriate license that they need to be circulated within China. We know that the government there controls external films coming in very, very tightly. Often only a dozen or so films make it through the censorship process. And that basically, what's interesting about this is that the film administration has actually said it's in response to the market conditions that Chinese consumers won't want to watch as many American films in reaction to the trade war that's going on. So, oh, we have to listen to the consumer. And so basically kind of saying it's not a retaliatory measure. It's only responding to the markets, which is, I think, kind of, clearly not exactly what's going on here. But I think, Hollywood will be one of those victims caught in the collateral of what we're seeing as kind of great power competition at the moment. And it will only be one of many victims, but just the latest one.
Somebody had to do what we did. And I did a 90-day pause for the people that didn't retaliate, because I told them if you retaliate, we're going to double it. And that's what I did with China, because they did retaliate. A deal's going to be made with China. A deal's going to be made with every one of them. And there'll be fair deals. I just want fair.
I think it's already out of control, really. I mean, depending on who you ask, yesterday's pause on the 90-day pause that Donald Trump introduced, depending on who you ask, maybe wasn't part of the plan and was actually a symptom, that a sign that the president has seen the markets and actually is deciding to back down a little bit to ease off the pressure a little bit, because the meltdown is arguably more than he expected. The Chinese reaction is arguably more than he expected as well. If you think back to that tweet on Truth Social that he put out after the Chinese retaliation to say that the China has panicked, I don't know if he necessarily expected China to fight back like this. So I think it is already out of control. And how bad can it get? Well, I think we really are in uncharted territory now, and it could get much, much worse.
The United States is still imposing tariffs on China, and China is firmly opposed to such bullying. China will absolutely not accept pressure, threats, and blackmail. That is not the right way to deal with China. If the US side really wants to talk, it should show an attitude of equality, respect, and reciprocity. If the United States ignores the interests of the two countries and the international community and insists on fighting a tariff war and a trade war, China will certainly accompany it to the end.
I think it doesn't need to right now because the US has put tariffs on Taiwan as well, and more than just the baseline 10%. Of course, we know about this 90-day pause, but assuming after the 90 days the tariffs come back in because Trump's not happy about Taiwan's exports of microchips or of semiconductors to the US, China doesn't need to do anything on that front at the moment because America is pushing Taiwan away, and this is the case for a lot of countries in the world right now, that if China just basically puts itself forward as the more reliable, stable trading partner, we are already seeing voices from, for example, the European Parliament saying now we need to kind of look for these stable partners more like China, which is incredible, so because the reciprocal tariffs are so global, Trump has actually made a lot of countries think twice about whether or not they should get closer to China as well. So if Taiwan will have trouble exporting to the US, or it will be more expensive, then actually it will end up relying on the Chinese economy a little bit more as a result. So I think from a strategic perspective, actually Beijing should just leave that one there and just wait and see how this plays out. Because at the moment, the biggest baddie in the room is Trump and is making a lot of countries reconsider their relationship with China. I mean, it already is breaking up the world into economic blocks because Trump is basically saying he doesn't want to be trading with China, right? These tariffs are so high as to effectively be double what Chinese imports cost at the American border. And so he's basically saying he doesn't want to do that kind of trade with China, and China is saying similar things, vice versa. So what we're seeing is a bifurcation of the world economy already. Globalization is dying and quickly. The question is where other countries go. This is where, if it was still the Biden administration, the Biden team would say, yes, we want to decouple, or at least de-risk from China, but we want Europe on side. We want the Anglosphere on side. We want our Asian developed country allies on side, like Japan and South Korea. With Trump, it's not clear if he can get that kind of alliance going. And so we might be seeing an economy that's even more fractured, or perhaps more in China's favor, depending on how much Trump grabs those allies and pulls them back in. Because at the moment, so far, what he did on Liberation, so-called Liberation Day, is push them further away.
I'm not worried about retaliation from China. We will stand on our own merits. Peace through strength matters. We represent our interests. We put America first. President Trump is staring them down on trade. We will reestablish deterrence as well.
They will be fair deals for everybody, but they weren't fair to the United States. They were sucking us dry, and you can't do that. Bond market is very tricky. I was watching it, but if you look at it now, it's beautiful. The bond market right now is beautiful. But yeah, I saw last night where people were getting a little queasy. I think everything had. Well, the big move wasn't what I did today. The big move was what I did on Liberation Day.
The United States, driven by self-interests, has weaponized tariffs as a means of exerting maximum pressure and seeking unilateral benefits. This severely infringes upon the legitimate rights and interests of other countries, constitutes a grave violation of World Trade Organization rules, seriously undermines the rules-based multilateral trading system, and poses a major threat to the stability of the global economic order. It is a blatant act that defies international norms and runs counter to the entire world.